It was late, too late for anyone to be outside, too quiet for anything to be wrong. The kind of night where you hear every small sound, every creak of the house, every car that passes by, even the faint rustle of leaves in the breeze. The phone buzzed once, then again. She picked it up and read the message. Simple, unremarkable, just 3 words. On screen, the message appears. Are you ready? It seemed like nothing at first. Another joke, another game. But when she looked around, there was something off. The world felt different, almost like the night itself was holding its breath, waiting. She felt a sudden unease, but it wasn't enough to stop her. The screen flashed again, and this time, the words were different. On screen, go outside. It wasn't a question, it was a command. Outside? At this hour? She didn't want to, but she couldn't stop herself. Something in her made her move, step by step, toward the door. The thought crossed her mind briefly. What if this was just a joke? What if it wasn't? But the message, the voice on the other side, it was more than that now. The door clicked open. The cool night air hit her face and she stepped outside. The street was empty, the house is silent, but the air around her was thick with something she couldn't explain. She glanced around, but there was nothing. No one, just the quiet. Yet, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted, that something else was happening, something she couldn't see but knew was there. And in that moment, she felt the weight of the decision she had made, the one she couldn't undo. Because once she stepped out of that door, she had already crossed a line. The next morning, her room was empty, her bed undisturbed. Her phone lying on the pillow had stopped buzzing. Her parents, still groggy from sleep, assumed she had gone out for the morning. Maybe a walk, maybe to see a friend. She had done it before. But as the hours passed, her absence started to raise questions. By noon, there was no sign of her, no call, no message, nothing. By 3 p.m., it became clear that something was wrong. The police were contacted. The search began. They retraced her steps, her school, the places she liked to visit, her friends' houses, but there was nothing. Her friends all claimed they hadn't heard from her. No one had seen her leave the house. No one had seen her since the night before. Then they checked her phone. On screen, the phone is shown on the screen, with a search history appearing. Her last known activity was on a messaging app, a series of messages, seemingly harmless at first, but the last few, unsettling. On screen, ready for the next level? The authorities traced the last known location of her phone, a nearby park just a few blocks away. But when they arrived, there was no sign of her. Nothing. Her phone, her jacket, nothing was left behind. It was as if she had disappeared into thin air. The search dragged on for days. With no new leads, no new clues, the investigation was at a standstill. But then, something unexpected happened. A tip came in. A former classmate of hers had seen her playing a game that everyone at school had been talking about. It started innocently enough, a group of friends, an online challenge, something to pass the time, a way to test each other, but it had grown darker. The dares had escalated. The tasks were no longer fun, but dangerous. The challenge was simple at first. Post a picture, do something silly, but it wasn't long before it turned into something more. You had to keep playing, or else. On screen, a blurred series of messages, some reading, "You can't stop now. Finish it, or else." The further you went, the more it consumed you. No one ever left the game, not if they wanted to win. Her friends admitted that she had become obsessed. She stopped talking about the tasks. She didn't share what was happening, but they noticed her growing secrecy. She'd grown distant, only focusing on the game. They had no idea what the final level would ask of her. No one did. What no one knew was who was behind the game. The messages were never signed. The profile picture was a blank icon, a ghostly figure hidden in shadows. No one knew who they were. No one knew why they were doing this. The authorities traced the messages. They found no source, no phone number. just a series of IP addresses, each one leading to an untraceable location. It was as if the game itself was its own entity, an endless series of commands just one step after another, without any end in sight. And then came the moment that no one could explain. The final message. It was simple, brief, on screen, you're almost there. But when the authorities found her phone, there was nothing more. No more clues, no more messages. 6 days later, the search team found something. A shoe, just one, sticking out from the dirt in a wooded area far from where she had last. Had been dropped in a hurry. And then they found her, cold, still, and far from where anyone had expected. On screen, a silhouette figure. Then the blurry outline of her body lying in the woods. It wasn't just a tragic end, it was a message. The case was never fully solved. The person behind the messages, the game, was never found. The authorities could only trace the game so far before the trail went cold. No fingerprints, no hard evidence. But the question remained, what was the game really about, and why did it end like this? She thought it was just a game, but it was never just that. And the rules, the ones she had been playing by, they weren't hers to follow. A long silence before the final message flashes. On screen, are you ready? The game doesn't stop, not when you think it's over. It keeps playing, moving, watching, and there will always be someone waiting for the next player to make their move. Was this truly an accident, or was she lured into a deadly game?